Yeah. Okay. Good morning to everyone out there listening to us on our normal opposition Sunday press conference being held this morning in Port of Spain at the leader of the opposition office. Joining me today is my esteemed colleague, the Honorable Saddam Hussein, MP for Sanwa Barataria, who will be talking a bit on crime and flooding in the country today. One will be well aware that on Friday, at our private members' day, the opposition brought a motion filed by MP Saddam Hussein on crime, and it was fleshed out and debated on Friday. And Saddam will have a lot more to say this morning coming out of that. Crime is rampant throughout our country. I think this morning, I think we are up to about 551 murders, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the last number that we would have gotten. I think when on Friday when MP Saddam would have spoken, I think that number was 542. So between Friday and Sunday, that number went from 542 to 551. So that tells a picture of what the state of our country in respect to murders and crime. We also this morning I would like to offer on behalf of the opposition our heartfelt prayers to our country, especially all citizens who would be at this point in time either in flood water, cleaning out their properties, or hoping that rain doesn't fall anymore, so that once again their properties and their assets can be damaged and flooded. So we see in this morning Sunday Express on both pages, the front and the back, tells a picture of where we are today, Sunday, and the state of our country in respect of flooding. Now, flooding is something that Saddam and all the opposition members would have spoken about over the last 2 years, especially whenever the Minister of Works and Transport comes before us in Parliament. I think up to Friday, Saddam asks an urgent question in respect to flooding in his particular area in Sanwa Barataria. And once again, the Minister of Works and Transport, as his normal style, is flippant and normally tries to deflect off of his incompetence and the incompetence of his government. Yesterday, we would have seen a press conference held by, I call them, the Three Stooges, Minister Sinanan, Minister of Local Government Paria, and also Minister of National Security Hines. So you would have seen, that press conference again this morning. I think our information is that the Minister of Local Government, Paria, is having another press conference at 11:30. I really don't know what he's coming to tell the population, other than to brace for more flood waters. And I am asking as an opposition member, over the past 7 days, rain has been pouring in this country, and not once we have seen the defense force out there with their equipment. I mean, the last time I saw the kind of heavy equipment that can assist was on August 30th at the Independence Day Parade. So I really hope that the Minister of National Security and the Defense Force really get out there and assist the population in whatever way, even trying to rescue some of our citizens who are trapped at their homes at this point in time. So Saddam will say much more later on in his presentation. This morning I would go first, and I would like to, over the last few days we would have seen a commission of inquiry into the debacle and the crisis of the Paria. And our condolences, I would like to say on behalf of the opposition, our condolences to the 4 divers who would have lost their lives, Faisal Kuban, Mr. Rishi Nagasa, Yusuf Henry, and Kazim Ali Jr. and to the survivor Christopher Boudram. Out of those 5 individuals, 3 of those individuals reside or resided in my constituency of Pointe-a-Pierre. Mr. Kazim Ali Jr., who I'm well familiar with, and his family resided in Gopal lands in Marabella in Pointe-a-Pierre. Mr. Faisal Kuban resided in Claxon Bay, and Christopher Boudram also resides in Claxon Bay in Pointe-a-Pierre, his lone survivor. So today I would like to address some of the concerns coming out of that commission of inquiry. But before we do that, I have a little 30-second clip. I would like to remind the viewing audience here this morning and listening of what really, and a reminder about this whole Paria incident.
Keep on living the lives that you wake up from bed. Don't make no difference. See for next time. It's easier to believe in this sweetness. All is glorious brings me to.
Did you see anything in that pipeline during the time you were in that pipeline to obstruct anyone from coming into that pipeline to rescue the men? If there's anything to obstruct them, how I come out?
Thank you. And I'd like to say thanks to Mr. Ivan Tulsi for using his clip here. Thank you, Mr. Tulsi. What you just witnessed is really at the end, where the lone survivor, Mr. Christopher Boudram, is telling this country if there were any obstructions in that pipe, how did he come out of that pipe? And that's a telling point that will last with me for as long as I live. And what we witnessed on February the 25th, 2022 is one of the worst industrial disasters that this country has witnessed for a number of years. The revelations of the Commission of Inquiry over the last few days have shown clearly that had there been proper leadership, had there been effective management and experienced authority, 4 of our nation's sons could have been alive today. The revelations of the Commission of Inquiry over the last few days prove that the calls by the opposition, the demands of stakeholders and others during this crisis that Paria was not undertaking all means possible to save these individuals may have been accurate. We as the opposition have been calling out since day one about this fiasco. Today we put this catastrophe, we put the cries and trauma relived by Christopher Boudram, the lone survivor. We put the inactions described by Michael Wee at the feet of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy. The Paria crisis was not a sudden catastrophe, but it lasted 3 to 4 days. The cries of the union and the family members about Paria failing to take proper action was on the news for days. Had this government, this Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy cared about the 4 divers, they would have intervened in those 4 days to ensure all was being done to save lives. We saw no serious intervention, no serious care or concern from the very top. As a matter of fact, it is reported that Chairman of Paria was playing golf during this weekend of crisis. So today we want the nation to know that as we are all saddened by the revelations of this Commission of Inquiry, this was the information we were putting to the public and the government at that time, with the hope that the government from the very top would take action to save lives. We want the nation to know that today, as we are saddened by the revelations of the Commission of Inquiry, all this horror could have been avoided had this government from the very top shown concern and called together all stakeholders to ensure the best was done to save lives. There was a total absence of any concern from the Prime Minister or the Minister of Energy. Today, we in the opposition want to commend the commissioners and all who have made this commission of inquiry transparent so far, because as we can see, there are many grave details emerging, and it is a slow walk to justice, but a walk nonetheless. Today, we want to commend the opposition leader for standing up to the politically tainted investigative team that was initially appointed by this government to investigate the occurrences of this tragedy on March the 3rd. Had we as an opposition not stood against this committee, much of what is being said within this Commission of Inquiry today, due to the independence of the Commission of Inquiry, would not be possible. Remember, this government on March 3rd, 2022, had first appointed an investigative committee headed by Attorney Shiv Sharma. Other members were supposed to be members from British Petroleum, BP, and Shell, and one Eugene Tier, as well as Gregory Wilson. The opposition stood up against this appointment of this committee due to the questions of the independence of this committee. It was then on the 8th of March 2022 that the Prime Minister announced the Commission of Inquiry. And you would remember that the original chairman of the Commission of Inquiry resigned at some point in time, and a new chairman, Chairman Lynch, who is now head of that commission, was appointed. And you also want to remember that even Chairman Lynch had issues of starting the Commission of Inquiry, from delays being just basic things of stationery and furniture, or even housing. They had an issue getting this Commission of Inquiry off the ground. So we thank God and we thank the people that this actually Commission of Inquiry has started, that we saw this week. The damning and disgraceful information emerging at this Commission of Inquiry, indicating that we could have saved at least attempt to save these 4 divers, raises more questions. Had this opposition not stood up and demanded independent personnel, we would not have heard most of these submissions today. While the Commission of Inquiry has its job and duty to undertake, which we will not tread upon, we want to remind the population that it was this opposition who exposed most of the callous, uncaring behavior of Paria management. We exposed that trained divers were being prevented from undertaking a rescue plan. And you would have heard in the Commission of Inquiry this week that there were back and forth and lack of proper information, where the Paria management was hiding behind certain pieces of information. We exposed that trained divers, as I said, were being prevented from undertaking a rescue plan. We exposed that the Paria management were not liaising with the families. We exposed that the Paria management had left these families uncared for, without food or water in the car park, when they were hoping and looking for survival and a rescue for their loved ones. Even toilet facilities that were placed in the car park was donated by a Good Samaritan. Today, we find it astonishing that the callousness of the Paria management has continued. When look at the revelations of Michael Wee, a manager in this fiasco, after the death of 4 of our sons, say that their role was excellent. And I want you to listen to this.
Your technical person, very nicely done.
I will rate it as, yes.
Yes. How would you rate the management of this incident on that day? How would you rate the management of the incident on the 25th that caused 4 men to perish? How would you rate yourself? The chairman, we do not have all evening, please. Take your sip of water.
I will rate it as excellent.
Thank you very much. 4 men died in an incident that you were to manage, and you consider that excellent. Thank you very much. You have a good memory because you were telling us that you were able to put your state.
Thank you, thank you. What you just saw, a little clip of where the attorney Prakash Ramada, who's representing two families of the divers who passed away or perished, asking Mr. Wee, who was one of the key managers at Paria on the day in question, how he would rate the management of this fiasco, this crisis. And Mr. Michael Wee, after all that has been said, rated the management as excellent in this crisis. I want people to go on the YouTube and really review it. He played with words. This was the same company that informed families on the Sunday, the Sunday which would be the 27th, that there was no longer a rescue, but it was a recovery by a press conference around 8 p.m. on Sunday night. This is the same company which has reported has abandoned the families of these Paria victims. Today we remind the management of Paria. You are paid by us, the taxpayers. You have a duty to help this country understand what went wrong and what went on and deliver the justice for the families of those divers. Paria belongs to each and every one of taxpayers of this country, not the management of Paria, not this government not this PNM government. Paria belongs to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and we deserve to know what happened by the Paria management on that fateful few days. Instead, it appears that Paria, using state funds, has paid a lawyer to badger the truth from being revealed, to badger Budram, the lone survivor, who can only be described by us as a national hero of courage, and cover up the truth, what occurred, causing 4 men to lose their lives. And at this point in time, I want to ask, because during this period of trauma, what occurred was that there was a communication person that is being paid by the Ministry of Finance, I think over $30,000 a month. That individual got footage, sensitive footage of the pipeline, of that remote camera that went into that pipeline. That individual got sensitive footage, and that individual was trying to malign this lone survivor, Christopher Budram, in trying to give the impression that he did not know what he was talking about, and that there were no survivors, that when he left the pipe, the 4 divers were not alive. And we heard the voice, the recording from the GoPro, the voice recording of those divers when they went into that pipe. You heard the voices of all the divers who were literally doing a buddy system trying to get out of that pipe. And the lone survivor, Christopher Budram, because he was the strongest and the least damaged out of the divers, he made his way out of the pipe with the intention that he told them to come back in the pipe to save them. And this is callousness. This is callousness shown by the management of Paria and this government towards these divers. Today, instead, Paria has taken what we have noticed in this Commission of Inquiry, and even before, an adversarial approach, and we, the opposition, we are asking, why are you taking this adversarial approach? You are the institution of taxpayers. You have a responsibility to cooperate, especially when it deals with the loss of our citizens. From the start, the management of Paria should have been sent on leave. We had called, the opposition had called that the top management of Paria should be sent on leave to allow proper investigation into this crisis. Today, we ask the management of Paria, are you hindering witnesses? Are you frustrating the process? Are you complicating evidence? If this was a government that really cared about justice, they would have suspended Paria's management. If you didn't have a reason to suspend Paria's management then, after all the revelations at this commission of inquiry so far, you have cause to do so now. And we are calling on the government, we are calling on the Minister of Energy to suspend the top management of Paria until the commission of inquiry has been concluded. Today we are calling again on Stuart Young and the Prime Minister, suspend the management of Paria until the findings of this commission of inquiry are made clear. Again, the opposition reiterates that this crisis, this massive catastrophe, has all been as a result of a lack of concern, care, reckless leadership from the Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy. I am calling, where was the Minister of Energy from the period from February 25th when the disasters first happened to until Monday the 28th? Where was the Minister of Energy? Because he had oversight and he was the regulator for Paria. Had a UNC government been in place, I assure you Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar would have been working around the clock with her ministers to ensure the best was done to save the lives of these divers. We saw zero commitment from the Prime Minister. Had a UNC government there, we would have suspended the top management of Paria until it became clear what actually happened. It seems that the Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy are intent on protecting their friends and families of Paria and maybe Newman George. We continue to support the Commission of Inquiry for its work for justice. But today we want to say firmly, we are in this crisis because of this government. In 3 days' time, my brothers, my family, my viewers out there, November 30th, on 3 days' time, will mark 4 years since Petrotrin was shut down in 2018. When they told us all were going home, this included competent safety personnel. I want to say that again. When they shut down Petrotrin and Espina said all going home, this included competent safety personnel. This included the persons who for years managed the safe operations of Petrotrin. Had this government not stripped and shut down and closed down Petrotrin, we might have had proper qualified individuals who could have responded to the catastrophe. We would have proper safety measures and regulations in place. We heard the testimonies of Michael Wee and other officials at Paria, some Mohammed. He didn't even know what he was talking about. Totally impotent and lacking. Had Petrotrin been operating, you would have had proper personnel to ensure catastrophes like this would never occur or would have been prevented. Was this a new Petrotrin this government promised? One where inexperienced individuals with no track record oversee a company with little regulations and abandons its citizens in times of danger. What we have seen from Paria management so far has been a very wrong and strong approach. They lack remorse, and worse, they lack any compassion for the families in most of their submissions. This is why we need the Commission of Inquiry to ensure it delivers answers for a nation that has been rocked by the callousness of Paria management. The population heard Michael Wee say that they didn't contact Christopher Boudram, the lone survivor, until 10 p.m. Christopher Boudram, the lone survivor, came out of that pipe just before 6 p.m. Michael Wee and the management of Paria never contacted Christopher Boudram until 10 p.m. via telephone in the hospital. They did not even see it proper and fit and proper to go to the hospital to try and get information from Christopher Boudram. They did it via telephone. We need the commission to find out why Paria acted without urgency. Let me repeat that. We need this commission to find out why Paria acted without urgency, without care, without haste to contact and Boudram to find out what really were the conditions in that pipeline to be able to save and come up with a plan. We heard this Michael Wee state that he didn't visit the site until Sunday. He did not, as a key manager, Michael Wee stated in his testimony, in his witness statement, that he did not visit the site until Sunday. This disaster happened on Friday around 3 p.m. He did not visit the site until Sunday afternoon. We want the commissioner to find out why officials such as we, who should have been actively trying to save these divers, acted without haste. And I want to stick a pin right here. And I really hope that we don't see promotions by Paria being given to certain people at the end of this commission of inquiry. We saw reports of Paria preparing condolences statements. I want to repeat that. We saw reports of Paria management preparing condolences statements 12 hours after the divers got into difficulty. We need the commission to find out why, given reports that these men were alive for at least 48 hours, did Paria give up on these men? We have heard information, I said it in a press conference on several times after this crisis in February 25th, that we heard and we know firsthand that they were tapping on the pipes for at least 12 hours when the disaster happened. And that tells us, and we were saying that the men were alive in that pipe. We have seen reports of evidence being presented by diver Ronald Ramuta, stating that the Coast Guard prevented the rescue, prevented them, the divers, the bodies, the families of the divers who were in the pipe, from going in to do a rescue. The nation needs answers to know if this was true. We have heard Michael Wee talk about the risk involved in saving these men. The Commission of Inquiry must find out on behalf of this nation, did Paria really do all in its power to save these men? In the papers this weekend, we saw reports of dive companies stating that Paria Fuel never asked them to rescue the divers. The Commission of Inquiry must tell us what the truth is. And we are asking, who is telling the truth in this fiasco? According to the Paria's general manager, Mustaq Mohammed, who I understand is hiding, he said the company took the advice of the Coast Guard and 4 dive companies that it was unsafe to rescue the 4 divers. However, according to the reports in the media, 2 of these companies revealed to the commission that they were never approached to rescue the divers, and only a third dive company only made the decision not to attempt a rescue until a certain time had passed. I think it was after Saturday evening. The Commission of Inquiry must reveal if Paria's general manager or CEO, Mustaq Mohammed, was misleading this nation, and instead of really trying to save these divers, they abandoned them. The Commission of Inquiry must reveal, and I ask, the Commission of Inquiry must reveal what role Arlene Chow, the CEO of Heritage, played in this fiasco. Is it that, I understand, I ask, is it that Heritage wanted back that berth to continue commercial activity over the lives of the 4 divers? I want the commissioner to find out what role Arlene Chow, who is now retired from Heritage, who is no longer there, what role she played in at least the first 48 hours of this fiasco. The Paria's CEO said he spoke to 4 specialist dive companies: Hull Support Services, Offshore Technology Solution, Mitchell's Professional Diving Services, and Eastern Emergency Response Services, and they are all conflicted. The Commission of Inquiry must uncover the truth and let the country know if Paria simply abandoned these divers. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I've laid our case as an opposition, as a member of parliament for Point of Pair. It hurts and pains my heart when I listen to the Commission of Inquiry, especially the witness, the statement of the lone survivor Christopher Boudram. As a member of parliament for Point of Pair, where at least 3 individuals of those 5 belong and live in Point of Pair, it pains us, it pains me every day. And the callousness that has shown so far by this Paria management, really, we need to get to the truth to uncover what really took place with the divers who lost their lives in that pipe. I don't think I have much to say at this point in time. I know there might be questions from the media. At this point in time, I would like to end and turn over to my colleague, Saddam Hussein.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, for joining us on our weekly opposition press briefing held on a Sunday. I just want to commend my colleague, our hardworking Chief Whip in the Parliament, for what is a comprehensive analysis of all of the issues surrounding the death of those 4 divers at the Paria tragedy, and some of those matters that MP David Lee would have informed us of this morning. Very shocking, startling, and over the next few days you will hear more coming out of that Commission of Inquiry into what really led to the death of those 4 citizens of Trinidad and Tobago in that most unfortunate Paria tragedy, and whether or not those individuals could have been saved and Paria acted negligently. And all that will be revealed in due course. But Trinidad and Tobago this morning, I myself was uncertain that I could have been here this morning to join you all in this press conference, because just last night there was unprecedented flooding in some of the parts of central Trinidad where I currently reside. My constituency, I spent the entire day yesterday in my constituency, and it is a most unfortunate event of what is taking place. Many of my colleagues and the Chief Whip could attest that I have been raising the issue of flooding ever since I became the MP for the constituency of Barataria San Juan. This area, called El Socorro South, is somewhat a bit different in terms of the situation there regarding flooding. Even when we don't have much rainfall, the water remains on the road for sometimes 4 to 5 days before it runs out. The last time I visited with the media was in the end of October, one particular area, and the water never ran out from that particular area. And that is due to the fact that it's a low-lying area situated on the one side of the Caroni River. And therefore, because that area is low-lying and the Caroni River is much higher, you need to have properly functioning flood pumps to get the water out from the low-lying area into the Caroni River. And I have been asking the minister time after time after time, please repair and replace those broken, dilapidated dinosaur pumps that we have. The situation is that one of the pumps were in fact replaced. There are 2 other pumps that are there. Yesterday afternoon I visited the pump house, only to realize that one of the pumps is working, the other one, I believe a compressor is damaged, and then there's another pump that is totally non-functional. And then I'm also to understand that I don't know if the diesel for the pump is not being provided, or the diesel that is being provided is going missing. So therefore the pumps are not running for the length of time required to pump the additional water from the village back out into the Caroni River. And the Ministry of Works and Transport Drainage Division is situated right in the area where it's being flooded. And yet, every single day the officials will pass and they'll see the situation that is taking place, because where the ministry is located, if you just walk out of the division, there's a makeshift roundabout, and you look down the road, you will always see water on that road, even when rain is not falling, simply because the pumps are not adequately working to get the water out of the village. And before I came here, I stopped to meet with some farmers. These farmers were in fact in despair, they are distressed, they have prepared the lands and their crops for the past few months, thinking that around this time for Christmas, when persons will require more produce, they'll be able to reap their crops and sell that for profits. I just want to show you, viewing public, what the farmers in this Arangwas area experienced this morning. So if you look on the screen, on the right hand side of the screen, that is where there's a field of celery was planted. If you look there, you can't even see the celery. When you look over, there's bodi on that side. You will see exactly that the entire area is drenched. These are some of the farmers in the area. And that is the reality that these persons have to live by. And I want to thank former councillor Safraz Ali, who was there, who would have provided the footage. And what we must ask is that the ministry has, I believe the Minister of Local Government has said that this is unprecedented flooding. I want to say this is unprecedented incompetence. Unprecedented incompetence. This is not the first time Trinidad and Tobago has flooded. It's not the first time. What did we learn from 2018? Have you not learned anything? Have you not learned that you have to properly maintain the water courses? You haven't seen the weaknesses in the riverbank? Haven't you seen the dilapidated pumps? And what have you done since 2018 to now? We're now in 2022. 4 years has passed. And it's not only my constituency suffering. My colleague from Mayaro, from Komoto Manzanilla, you saw the destruction on the Manzanilla Road. Caroni East is also underwater, the constituency I reside in. I believe, I don't know if my colleague here, Point of Fair, if you are unfortunate enough like us to have flooding in your area.
God spared it. Spared Point of Fair.
That is
this time around.
Yeah, and then you have the southern constituencies, Orpuch, East, West, Paria. All of these constituencies, Tabakit, continuously face landslides, flooding, and this is as a result of a culmination of 7 years of neglect and mismanagement. Now, what is the answer and the solution for all of these problems? The Ministry of Works and Transport is allocated one of the largest budgets every single year, billions of dollars in fact, that they are allocated every single year. And there are several programs on the budget books: river clearing and cleaning. You have for repairs of floodgates and pumps. And when we go back into the parliament, we see that X amount of money is being allocated for these particular projects. And then when you go and you look at the revised estimate, none is being spent. And when none is being spent, what does that translate to? That no work is being done. None. None. I heard Minister Rohan Sinanan telling me that the water is not reaching the pump. Well, Minister Rohan Sinanan, I have time today. Let's go by the pump now, and I'll show you whether or not the water is reaching the pump. I believe some of my constituents would like to see you and greet you very warmly to introduce you to the pump house and whether or not the water is reaching the pump. And then on top of all of this, it's the national security side, because the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management falls directly under the Ministry of National Security. If anyone can spot the ODPM, please let me know, because I think we may have to send out a bulletin that the ODPM is missing. We may have to inform the TTPS because the ODPM is nowhere to be found. My colleague raised the point of where's the Defense Force. There are some persons in my constituency. Yesterday we had to get a big dump truck to even go and access some of those homes so that we could get some supplies to the children and the parents who are living there. And if you just allow me, which was very heartbreaking yesterday, that there are a few water pipes that were burst, and when the water pressure reduces, the flood water gets into the pipes. And 3 children in my constituency were hospitalized. The parents can't even go out of the road because the vehicles cannot pass through the flood water. So they had to hire additional transportation, hire vehicles in order to get the children to the hospitals. I mean, are we really living in 2022? And then you boast and tell us you're getting a windfall from energy prices, and you have citizens of our country suffering in this manner. And as I said, this is not my constituency alone. This is taking place across the board. And we call upon the Ministry of Works and Transport, Minister Sinanan, please wake up, please listen to us, get on the ground, and let us help alleviate this flooding issue. Stop blaming climate change alone. Stop blaming the corporations. Stop blaming the opposition. Take some responsibility on your own and let us go out there. We will help coordinate some of the what has to be done on the ground in order to prevent flooding from occurring. And there are 3 ministers, and I just want to get back to that point on the farmers. There are 3 ministers of agriculture, Minister Kazim Hussain, Minister Singh, Minister De Freitas, and there's absolute no improvement in the area of agriculture. Farmers are still waiting on compensation since that 2018 flooding. What is taking so long for you to properly provide the compensation for these farmers? And what will happen is that during Christmas, there's an uptick in economic activity. People tend to shop a bit more. And when you go into the groceries, you will even see higher food prices that we're already reeling from the pandemic. And some of the farmers this morning even said that there may be a lack of fresh produce on the market shelves because of how close the flooding is to this Christmas period. So with all of this being said, this government has fallen down on the job. No amount of press conferences you could have with Faris and Hines and Sinanan could really help this situation right now. What you need is to get the boots on the ground, you need to get the equipment on the ground, you need to do the proper maintenance, because we only have 2 seasons in Trinidad and Tobago, the dry season and the wet season. Prepare for the wet season in the dry season. And again, the government continues. I don't know what they're doing with the money. I don't know if that money is going towards building a 6-story or 5-story building in Balize House, but clearly that money is not going to help the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And those who are listening, when this floodwater subsides, we have to come back to the reality of what we face, which is crime. Trinidad and Tobago is known for many firsts. We placed first in Olympics. We made several other firsts, but this again, 2022, is the first time we have crossed the highest murder toll in the history of our country. This weekend would have brought us up to over 550 murders. The highest was in 2018. We recorded 550, and we still have approximately about 4 weeks again, roughly 4 weeks again, for the year to end. Most unfortunate situation, when our country is no longer recognizable, when we see children hiding under their desk because gunmen are engaged in open gunfire, and a teacher is begging the children to please stay under your desk in fear. Could you imagine what that teacher and those children were feeling? And then what do? In order to make things better, we get 2 singers to go and visit the schools. Now I'm grateful that they did, that the children were able to meet these celebrities. But what is the real solution so that these children don't have to face open gunfire again? No amount of songs that we can sing will help them. You need to get the police, you need to get the army on the ground, you need to get these guns off the street to help these children. That is what you need to do. And then when you can see a man's head decapitated floating on a river, on a highway, not in a back road, not in a river or in some field, on a highway, You have a human head floating. That is where Trinidad and Tobago has become, my citizens. And then we must accept from this government that they're doing well. Michael, we said they did excellent in the Paria tragedy. And it seems as though Minister Fitzgerald Hines has also said that he has done excellent when it comes to crime. Look at where we have reached in this country. When I raised the motion on Friday, I'm not going to give all the statistics. This is one of the articles that was printed. And Hines is reported here by saying, Hines responds to my motion, no lack of resources. Well then, Minister, if there are no lack of resources, then it must be a management issue. And who is in charge of management? Not you, as Minister of National Security, not the Prime Minister as the head of the National Security Council. Then there must be a lack of management, and there is clearly a surplus of incompetence in order to deal with this crime situation. Because if you're telling us that the police is properly resourced, then what is the issue? Why it is that crime is continuously running unabated? You must, I heard Minister Marvin Gonzalez say that if you change the Minister of National Security, it wouldn't solve crime. If you change the Commissioner of Police, it wouldn't solve crime. Well, I want to agree with Marvin this morning. You must change the entire government in order for us to solve crime. Because crime is not only a focus solely on the Ministry of National Security. It must be a holistic whole of government approach to fight crime. There must be working relationship with the Ministry of Youth Development in order to help with unemployment, together with labor, together with education for training capabilities. You must also have working relationships with the Ministry of Agriculture for those youths who want to get into agriculture. And it's a holistic approach, and I believe that the Guardian captured it well. That while we talk about CCTV cameras and passing legislation and putting police on the streets or making empty political statements like what we heard on Friday from the Minister of National Security, these are superficial approaches, but they must not be discounted because those things go directly to the management. There's something called crime prevention through environmental design, and that deals with creating an environment where there's easy detection. If I have the detection rates, I can go through some with you. Sometimes for the year, if we have over 400 murders, the detection rate is as though about 20 or 30 murders are being detected, and that totally is unacceptable. So those are some of the issues that we have to deal with. I also saw the Express saying and making some passing reference that it's a blame game that we engaged in. And it's not that I'm going to attack any media house or whatever. What I'm going to say is that we need to correct that statement, because that is an inaccurate statement that it's a blame game that is being played. The leader of the opposition has on many, many occasions outlined several solutions in order to stop crime and prevent crime from occurring. And those initially, Chief of, I think it was in 2017 or so, there was a joint meeting with the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition who identified about 6 low-hanging fruits. And nothing came out of that meeting because the Prime Minister indicated that he will take on some of the recommendations being made, and nothing has came out. For example, one recommendation was the appointment of an independent senator to serve on the National Security JSE. We had Minister Hines serving on that JSE for the last session, and then now Keith Scotland, Member of Parliament for Port of Spain South, is the chairman of that. So simple changes like that for proper oversight and accountability of national security apparatus to the Parliament is not being done. So while we hear people say it's a blame game, no, it's not a blame game. It's holding the government to account. That is our duty as an opposition, to hold the government to account. And the opposition leader did, in fact, as I said, express solutions. And one of those were that there are so many ministries involved, so many agencies involved under the umbrella Ministry of National Security, that you need to decentralize that ministry. You need to have the Ministry of Homeland Affairs, you have to have the Ministry of Defense, and the Ministry of Justice. And what she meant by that is Homeland will deal with internal affairs, will deal with things like the TTPS. It will deal with agencies such as the SSA, so that you have coordinated approaches within our borders. And then the Ministry of Defense will have under its remit the Defense Force. It will also have the Coast Guard that deals specifically with our borders, because I think they have identified over 200 weaknesses in our borders, and that we're allowing so many firearms to continuously come into the country. And then you have the Ministry of Justice will coordinate the various agencies within the judiciary for a properly functioning criminal justice system, so that criminals, we drive fear into the hearts of criminals, that they will think twice in terms of committing crimes, thereby creating a suppression and a prevention of criminal activities from taking place in Trinidad and Tobago. So that was one of the ideas. The other one was the Community Comfort Patrol, which was scrapped again by this government, which in fact built relationships between the TTPS and members of the community in order to build back that level of trust and confidence in the TTPS, so that citizens feel a bit more secure when reporting crimes and building that internal relationships within the communities. The use of technology. Oh gosh, don't use the technology to spy on us now. Don't use it now, right? Go and really find out what the criminals do. You pass laws to find out what they're doing in the prison. Up till now, you have no jammers and these grabbers. They're not properly operating because you hear the hits coming from the prison. I mean, really use the spying equipment to spy on the criminals, right? Spy on the criminals. Manage the human resources capabilities within the TTPS. You have the improvement in the criminal justice system that I mentioned earlier, sorry, and job creation. Job creation is a very important issue. MP David Lee was, while our government was in power, dealt with the MIC, and many persons there would have passed through those particular institutions and get skill training certificates, so that you will have jobs available for these persons, and that when they go out into the place of work, they have a certificate to say, look, I am certified in order to become a plumber, a joiner, whatever skill that they may have acquired at these institutions. And all of that has done what the PNR has done with it? Shut it down. So I'm not saying that we're blaming only, but we're also providing solutions in order to help our citizens. We have just come out of a pandemic. Persons out there, we have realized that there's high employment rate. Persons, the economy is now trying to start, if it can, kickstart, if that's possible. But you have to make your population employable, and that is the issue. You have to make your population employable, because there are so many citizens out here, young people, sitting with degrees, looking very beautiful on their wall. When family comes over, the parents can boast and say, look, my son or daughter graduated from university, but then when they ask them where they're working, they don't have a job. And that is a major part of this entire issue with respect to unemployment. And when persons are unemployed and you have high employment rate, there is a correlation with respect to criminal activities. And then what happens to our social security net? There's a big hole in that net apparently, because there are so many persons who really need the assistance that fall through that net, and there's a lot of corruption within the system, and steps need to be taken. And I'm not speaking from a place of no evidence. If you read through the Auditor General's report on a yearly basis, you will see how many times they will flag corruption within the Ministry of Social Development, and how many persons may have fraudulently been able to access these grants. And there must be some more internal control. And I can tell you, citizens, that I have 9 pages here, 9 pages of broken records from the PNM. But I think everyone understands. I don't need statistics to prove, I don't need empty political statements to prove that Trinidad and Tobago is under siege by the criminal elements right now. And crime is a runaway situation as a direct result of the mismanagement and incompetence of those in charge of our security agencies and apparatus. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, MD Saddam, for again carrying us through a bit of your crime motion, or additional information on your crime motion that was brought in Parliament on Friday. I just want to remind you, Saddam, that when you debated your motion, the first responder on the government side was the Minister of National Security, Hines, and he started off by saying our motion, your motion, the opposition motion on crime, it's flimsy. He used the word flimsy. And we want to ask Minister Hines, who is the Minister of National Security, the same young children that is hiding under those desks in Rose Hill Primary School, is it a flimsy motion? Really and truly, Minister Hines, where do you get to be able to use the word flimsy on a crime motion that touches each and every one of us? I don't think anyone in this room has not been affected by crime that is rampant in our country. As I would have mentioned before we started this morning, Saddam, when you bought your motion on Friday, the number of murders was what,
542.
542, and today it's over 550 in a space of what, 48 hours, literally 48 hours. We moved from 542 to over 550, right? When we talk about crime, the minimum that this government should have been doing to ensure that the CCTV cameras throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago is working, and you ask the question, why don't they see this as important? Even with the Andrea Barrett death, CCTV cameras could have assisted, right? It reminds me, as a procurement regulation, why this government is taking and dragging its feet on passing the procurement regulation and putting it in place. We ask the question, right? So there are many questions we have to ask. And also, Saddam, before we take questions, I want to implore that Marvin Gonzalez, the Minister of Public Utilities, the country is under floodwaters. And when the floodwater recedes, the next step is cleanup. And we are asking the Minister of Public Utilities to ensure that the households get the necessary water to assist them in cleaning up their property, to make their lives a little bit more comfortable, because without the water to clean up after the floods recede, right, it will be another disaster waiting. So we implore on Minister Gonzalez, all that talk you like to talk, please ensure that WASA, the pipes, have the water to assist the households in cleaning up their property. So with those few words, I want to thank you, Saddam, for joining me this morning. It's always a pleasure to have you with me. So
There was some question, I think.
sure.
MP, you mentioned the Paria, the Commission of Inquiry. The Commission of Inquiry is not a criminal investigation, but do you think that given some of the testimony we have heard so far, that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service should open their own investigations into this event?
Well, I would have assumed, and Saddam could bear me out, that when this whole tragedy happened on February 25th, and the whole approach, that you would have seen that the police should have gone in to even secure evidence, right? Because 4 lives were lost. 4 lives were lost. And somebody has to account for the loss of those 4 divers. So we would have thought that the police should have been there already. And if they are not, we are hoping that as the evidence unfolds during this, coming out of this commission of inquiry, that the Commissioner of Police utilizes, really goes in there and protects the evidence and do what he has to do. So we are hoping, that happens.
Also, do you think that Minister Young, the Minister of Energy, should he be brought before a commission to possibly explain his actions?
That's a good question. I forgot to mention that. I hope the commission inquiry calls Minister Young, because he's a Minister of Energy. He's responsible oversight for Paria. And I asked the question, what was his role since February 25th, when the tragedy happened, to at least until the bodies were recovered from the pipeline? What role did Minister Young play? And I remember calling on Minister Young to assist the families that were in the car park. The callousness that was shown by the management of Paria, I asked him to take over as the Minister of Energy to at least make life a little bit more comfortable for the families who were waiting for word on the rescue of their loved ones. So yes, I agree, Minister Young should be called. And I also want to ask, that individual of communication from the Ministry of Finance who got this sensitive footage of the pipeline, and that individual should also be called in front of the Commissioner of Inquiry to find out where did she get that sensitive and confidential footage showing what went on with the camera in the pipeline.
Correct. With regard to that point, MP, do you think that Paria leaked that footage to this communications person affiliated with the Ministry of Finance in an attempt to blatantly smear Mr. Boudreaux?
In my view, when you saw that footage, it clearly was to really malign Mr. Boudreaux, the lone survivor, and we have to. That is why I'm asking that the Commissioner of Inquiry invites this individual, this female communication individual who is paid by the Ministry of Finance, to come before the commissioners to investigate what role did she play, how did she come across that information, and even look at her story that she told about that footage.
MP, we know that the chairman of Paria is a close friend to the Prime Minister. The president of THPL is the Prime Minister's lawyer. One communications assistant at Paria is also very closely linked to the Prime Minister. Do you think that Paria is perhaps too politically involved, and hence it may explain some of the behavior of the company?
Okay, let me expand a bit. When you look at the players at the top level, from the board, from the chairman of the boards of that whole Paria heritage, even the CEOs, even some of the top management from Mustaq Mohammed, his involvement with this government, it is a very incestuous relationship that has happened since the shutdown of Petrotrin. And one wonders why, and one has to really ask, and whenever the Honorable Kamala Pasabi says that it comes back as Prime Minister of this country, the first thing I'm asking her to call for is a Commission of Inquiry in that whole shutdown of that Petrotrin refinery, or Petrotrin as a state company. You see a lot of incestuous relationship in top management and also the board of that of those companies in what we call was the past Petrotrin and the new Petrotrin as it is known now. And that is why we as an opposition had called for the suspension of the top management, even the chairman of the board, until the Commission of Inquiry ends and their findings are made public.
And you mentioned that in your home area there's a lot of flooding. Can you give us a little bit more insight into how bad the damage was?
Yeah, so basically what happens is that in the Canopia area, this is the second time we have gotten flood in the last, I believe, 3 weeks or so, and this affects hundreds of residents within the area. Damage, water comes into the homes, that's how high it comes. What we understand is that there may be a blockage with respect to the Canopia River, and I believe MP Rishi Sitaram, who is the MP for that particular area, has called upon the Ministry of Works and Transport, to address the issue. I believe there was a site visit done yesterday with some technocrats from that ministry in order to rectify that situation, but that is a matter that must be dealt with urgently because it leads to loss every single time it floods and businesses being shut down during that period of flooding.
And you're trying, some government officials, and so are suggesting that what we're dealing with here is an unprecedented amount of rainfall as opposed to a lack of infrastructure. What are your thoughts on that?
No, as I said earlier, it's not an unprecedented level of rainfall. These things should have been properly sort of managed. They blame climate change. It's an unprecedented level of mismanagement and incompetence. What you should have had was proper planning being done from since we faced that massive flooding in 2018 and contingency plans being put in place and a proper management and maintenance system for water courses. I mean, just the same example I gave with Canopia River. You have a river being narrowed because of a wall that exists in the middle of the river. How could you have seen that um, for many months, and you do nothing, and then you have to wait until it rains and you see the effects of that, then to come and take some action. So the farmers also, they have complained that the bank has eroded, the pumps are not working. All of these things should have been properly addressed during the dry season period, so that when the rain eventually comes, that there will be a contingency plan being put in place to prevent this level of flooding and loss.
You mentioned the idea of compensation for farmers who
Yes.
have lost their crops. Can you give us an idea of how extensive the damage to crops are, and what sort of figure we're dealing with in terms
So-
of how many farmers need compensation?
So from just my visit this morning, one farmer alone has estimated loss up to $100,000, and that is because of the level of preparation they have to make with respect to the lands. That's the first thing. Then the maintenance of the crops throughout the period of time. Then the reaping and everything like that will have amounted to all of these losses. Now, what also is causing a lot of expenses is that even before the rain falls, they will mobilize pumps, and they have to rent these pumps at very, very high prices. And then they have to, if they don't stay there themselves in the dead of the night, they have to hire security to remain with these pumps in order to try to get as much water out of the land to try to save the crops. But in this case, because the pumps in the area that are managed by the Ministry of Works and Transport are not properly functioning, you have the water really damaging these crops to the extent that we have seen in the video. That video had silhouette, and as I said, you can't even see anymore. That's how high the water is.
And you saying, you mentioned the motion of crime by the opposition on Friday, as well as the discovery of the severed heads last week and so on. This is not the first time these kinds of gruesome crimes have happened. They are mostly associated with drug cartels in South America. Is the opposition concerned that perhaps there could be the presence of South American gangs currently in Trinidad?
Listen, we have over 200 witnesses in our borders currently exist. We saw over close to 60,000 Venezuelan nationals enter our borders undocumented. I am not surprised that criminal elements from various parts of the world enter our borders, and they are undetected simply because of poor border management. You have the Coast Guard vessels, they said, that are working. You have the 360 radar working, but clearly it's not detecting anything coming in our country. For example, I saw the minister made an announcement that we have over 12,000 firearms that are illegal in our country, and we don't manufacture firearms in Trinidad and Tobago, so they must be coming through that porous border that currently exists. And again, these are issues that can be ventilated through the Parliament and the Joint Select Committees. But if you have a political person chairing that particular committee, then you will never be able to identify and get the answers to the questions that we ask.
With regards again to the opposition's motion on Friday, it's clear that the Prime Minister is still continuing to have faith in Minister Hines as Minister of National Security. There's no suggestion that he's going to make any changes. So, what do you think that needs to be done to really get a handle on the murder rate and perhaps stop it from skyrocketing?
There's one answer: we need to get rid of the government.
Just before we end, there are a couple of things I just want to, keeping with crime, it has brought to our attention through one of our councillors and the MP for Cougar North, MP Ravi Ratiram, and we met with the uncle of a missing young lady, a Jamaican national who resides in Trinidad and Tobago. She has gone missing for the last 8 days. She resided somewhere, I think, in the Freeport area. Her name is Kimali Lamont. I think her picture is on the screen right now. Help find me. Her uncle, who's a mayor from Jamaica, one of the districts in Jamaica, he's a mayor. He came down to see if he can get information about his niece. I want to commend MP Ravi Ratiram and Councillor Bisham Mohammed, who has been trying to assist the uncle, Mr. Donovan Mitchell, in just making his life a little bit comfortable while he's in Trinidad trying to get information about his missing niece. And really our prayers go out to him, the uncle, and really hope that Miss Lamont is found in good health, and that she does not become another statistics in our crime rate. So really pray for her to be found, and anyone who can assist in helping find Miss Lamont, please do so and contact the nearest police station to assist. Before we end, I would just like to say that, on Friday, Saddam, we have seen the Attorney General meeting with the scrap dealers. Point of Paria has over really 50% of the industry comes from Point of Paria, Claxonley area. And we really hope that the Attorney General and this government is just not doing lip service as we come into Christmas. This industry, which really gives revenue and income to so many families throughout Trinidad and Tobago, and they do a service for the country in Trinidad and Tobago. We really hope that the Attorney General keeps his promise and lifts the ban before year end, and so that livelihood could return and income can be generated by these scrap iron workers, not only dealers but the workers who assist the scrap iron dealers. So we wait to see if the Attorney General brings that bill to Parliament before Christmas. So with those few words, I want to thank the communication team. I want to thank my colleague Saddam Hussein for joining me this morning. I know it was a little bit touch and go that he might not have been to be able to make it given the flood waters in his area. I want to thank him for joining me. I want to thank the listening and the viewing public out there. Stay tuned to our Monday night virtual tomorrow. We have a bumper MPs and group of individuals who are talking besides the Honorable Political Leader. I think we have Dr. Munilal, Deputy Political Leader, Member for Overpooch, Member of Parliament for Overpooch East. We have Senator the Honorable Jillian John. We have Senator the Honorable Anil Roberts, and I think myself will be joining that team on Monday. So stay tuned. Thank you for listening, and God bless.